The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us on Friday, August 7th. It's Championship Friday here in the state of California, and of course here in San Francisco at Harding Park with round two underway. We've got a beautiful sunny day, and so far so good. We're so grateful that certainly the conditions are different than any of us had possibly could have seen or foretold, but we're grateful to be having the first major of the year in the state of California in our sections, including Northwestern Nevada. Special shout out to our 20 club professionals representing 14 sections. It's so great to have them here and get a chance to speak with them over the past few days and get to know them a little bit more. So good luck to all our 20 PGA professionals. Right now, I checked the leaderboard. Looks like Hae-Tong Lee is about 7 under. Jason Day ended the day at 5 under yesterday with Brendan Todd, and they're still there at 5. So Hae-Tong Lee is 7 under at the moment. Welcome this morning to David Charles. David is our Senior Director of Championships for the PGA of America. David, welcome. And we found out earlier that in about little less than 3 weeks, August 26th will be David's 29th anniversary with the PGA of America, starting back in '91 at Crooked Stick. That's awesome. And of course, our Director of Governmental Affairs, Craig Kessler, the Southern California Golf Association, and Assistant Director of Governmental Affairs, Kevin Fitzgerald from the Southern California Golf Association, and our friends and colleagues, Tom Addis, Tony Lotandre, Nikki Gatch, Jeff Johnson, and the team from Southern California. So at the moment, as we get started, I'd like to toss it to our Northern California PGA President and San Francisco native, Didi Moriarty. Didi?
Thanks, Len. Hey, Tom. Hey, Tony. Really missing the Southern California crew. Wish you were all here, but you know what? We'll share everything with you. But no, nothing but good thoughts today. You know, as an old Harding Parker, it's just amazing to me how beautiful the course is on television with the removal of the trees and the lake and the drone coverage. You know, we're so proud to have this championship in San Francisco, and I think it's going to be a great finish. You know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens as the rough grows a bit, and really the premium on good driving. So so here's to a great rest of the championship, and thanks for letting me chime in to say hello, everybody, and we'll throw it back to Len.
Okay, thank you, Didi. And now to our Southern California President, Mr. Tony Lotandre. Tony?
Well, thanks, Len, and good morning, everyone. And nice to see everybody virtually again. It's exciting that it's PGA Championship week. It's cool that we get to be the first major, and even cooler that it's in our home district. You know, the Southern California, Northern California, and Aloha sections are all very close. We have a very tight-knit district, and so although we don't get to be there with you all, I know we're there in spirit, and you're sharing these moments with us. So thank you on behalf of all of us for hosting this great event and this great championship in our district. Very excited to hear what the latest is and to hear what's happening at Harding Park. And I know Didi will share with us, and looking forward to what David has to share. So thank you very much, everybody, for being with us this morning. And Len, Tom, thank you.
Thanks, Tony. And to my counterpart and our leader, past president of the PGA of America and a longtime section member of Southern California, and a friend of mine. I feel he doesn't say that about me, but I say that about him because I just feel better when that happens. Mr. Tom Addis. Tom?
Thanks, Len, and morning, and the feeling's mutual, and you make me feel old, especially like David, for example, in celebrating 29 years with the PGA of America, and David came on when I happened to be secretary of the PGA, so it's starting to make me feel very mature. And as a matter of fact, this is, I believe, the second or third championship that I've missed since 1983, if you can believe that. So it's going to be a great week up there. This is the first major, I believe, in a year. Or over a year, excuse me, and pretty special. And I think it starts off, and David can validate this, it starts off a series of 7 majors over the next year. So I think that's pretty exciting. Harding Park is a wonderful venue. I played there in junior golf a couple times, whether it be in the San Francisco City or the San Francisco City Junior way back then. And a great golf course and a great setting. And as Dee Dee mentioned, the layout of the golf course and with the trees now as they sit, just absolutely gorgeous. So thanks everybody for being here. It's a great day, and we look forward to it. Look forward to talking with David and learning a little bit more about what's happening this week at the PGA Championship.
Thank you, Tom. So David, welcome again. David Charles, our Senior Director of Championships for the PGA of America. David, this doesn't look like the playbook that we had for the past couple of years, but it's happening, and it's just amazing. So thank you and everyone for all the incredible hard work on the front line and in the back office to bring the championship to Harding Park here in August. So Dave, your thoughts, impressions about some of the process and the feeling on the golf course at Harding Park with the players and the staff that are there, but also no fans and everything that's part of that. So David, welcome to the Northern California section and Southern California section.
Well, thanks, Len and Tom. It's great to be out here in California. Last time PGA of America conducted a championship here was in 1995 at Riviera. So it's been way too long for us returning our signature championship out west, but we won't be too long till we're back with the 28th PGA across the Lake Merced here at Olympic Club. And then now it was obviously this year, it was early this year, was the 2032 Ryder Cup. Now it has moved to 33 at Olympic Club as well. So we've got a great presence here. Len, we're going to be annoying you for a few more years to come, and we look forward to brighter days and playing more golf and just enjoying building championships here in the San Francisco area. But no, it's great to be playing golf. If you're looking at the leaderboard right now, Hart Lee is it's 5 under today, so he's 8 under total for the championship. And so the scoring is great. We got a lot of past champions in the mix as well, with Jason Day, who will play this afternoon, and Martin Keimer, as well as Tiger is lurking back there. But and even our 2-time defending champion Brooks Koepka, who won at Belle Reve, and Beth Page at 4 under. So the leaderboard's great. It is very different, and Tom alluded to, there's a great stretch of major championship golf here in these next few months with the condensed schedule, with the U.S. Open at Winged Foot in October, the Masters in November. But what I think is unbelievable is that there's been the last 6 major championships that have been played. 3 of them are PGA championships. And that started at Belle Reve in 2018, and then you had Belle Reve, and then you had the Masters in 2019. Then you had the PGA at Bethpage in 19. Then you had the U.S. Open, the British Open, and here we are for the 3rd PGA Championship in 6 major championships. So very unique, and this next run up is going to be something else. So. It's unfortunate the situation we're in. Tickets go on sale for Kiowa on Monday for the 21 PGA Championship, and we're hoping that we're not wearing facial coverings and things like that, and we have a large gallery there at Kiowa. But hopefully things will sort themselves out very, very quickly, which is very optimistic. But obviously, this year, it was such a big change coming here to Harding Park after all the planning. I was here in February, and we had a great round of golf with some of our media partners. I played with Mark Immelman, actually one of the commentators for CBS. And who would have known where we are today? But, that early March turned everything on its head, and we had already started building facilities here at Harding Park. The large 40,000+ square foot PGA shops, we call it, the merchandise tent. The floor was down, the beams were laying down, ready to be raised, and we put a hold on that. We had some other structures up, that were to be the temporary locker room for the contestants and their dining area, and those structures have remained up since March. And here we are. The PGA Shops is now the biggest socially distanced locker room in golf, as we can tell. And so the merchandise tent became the locker room, and the player original locker room became the media center. And we went from, at Bethpage, we had 900 credentialed media, and here we have 50 working stations. A lot of them are internal PGA staff and our digital team and our social teams, but we have 25 credentialed media to cover the PGA Championship, along with a few photographers. So we've shrunk significantly, and obviously in an effort to social distance, we've developed the structures like that. But what we've done, which I think is really remarkable, is we've gone from really an on-site footprint like we had at Bethpage last year with those 900 media reporting on it, to a virtual media center. And we have a virtual hub, we're calling it, a media hub. And while we only credential 25 media on property here for Harding Park, we've grown our global reach, and those media that are logging on to our media hub to get all the same information that they would have gotten if they were sitting on the ground here at Harding Park. So it's going to be the way of the future, and obviously these calls like we're doing right now, obviously this is different than just a regular Zoom or Hangouts type meeting, but that's the way we're going to be of the future. And doing that for the media can shrink our media presence on site and grow it virtually, which we're really excited about. So we'll increase our coverage. But on the ground here, at the end of the day, inside the ropes is business as usual. It's just we don't have the fanfare around, the cheering. And there was an article written that we are encouraging our volunteers to clap and cheer at shots, which is one person, the walking score, following the hole. So that's untrue. We actually are not encouraging them to. We're just letting people do what they normally do if they see a great shot, and if they want to applaud, that's fine. But Tiger teed off yesterday morning. I was right there, and there wasn't one clap when he teed off on the first tee to start his PGA Championship run. But inside the ropes, Kerry Haig is working very closely with the golf course superintendents here at Harding Park, and they've done an outstanding job preparing the golf course. And as you can see from the scores yesterday, it is in excellent shape. And even the scores today, 5 under is a great round of golf so far, and only through 11 holes. So it's going to be exciting, and I think our new coverage with ESPN this year, and we as usual, you would hear the whole morning coverage was on ESPN Plus and featured groups with ESPN regular TV in the afternoon, and tomorrow morning it'll be on ESPN and then CBS on Saturday and Sunday into the evening. But we've had a few complaints about people saying that it's pay-per-view and you got to get ESPN Plus. But I'm sure some of you are sitting there drinking your cup of Starbucks or something, and it probably was close to the $4.99 monthly fee. And this isn't a sales pitch to get you to buy another subscription, but $4.99 for the month to watch ESPN Plus and get all this bonus coverage is truly a great way to watch the PGA Championship. And never before have we had it from the opening tee shot to the closing putt in the hole. And we're just really excited about our new partnership with ESPN and our continued long-term relationship with CBS. So, Len, I don't know any questions you would have that could drive the conversation other than that opening remarks.
Well, David, thank you. And the beauty of it is that yesterday the weather turned out great, and today it's obviously a beautiful day. Have you had feedback from the players on the golf course is playing great, it's playing hard? How about some feedback from the players? And in terms of the protocols, have there been any adjustments based upon activity or lack of activity? Because it seems as though it's going actually very smoothly.
everything is going unbelievably smoothly, and I think it's from having a facility like Harding Park here. And actually, if you were ever, we've been joking with championship director who's been here for the last almost 2 years, Barry Deach, in market planning for it. That plan we had that we had started to build in March was thrown out the window, and we started from scratch. And Harding Park has worked out to be kind of the excellent, the best venue we could have potentially had, with Lake Merced surrounding it. So we're on an island. We have kind of the fence going down 12 and 13, but we're very well protected here. We can control our borders. We know who's coming in and out, and it makes for a lot easier championship. The player facilities, we were building temporary structures to start with. We just grew them much larger for them, so that helped out. But the overall plan inside the ropes is what Kerry Haig has been developing over the last couple of years with Kevin Tehan and Olmar to get the golf course ready. And I think from what the players said during the practice rounds when they were talking a lot about the golf course, a lot of them were saying it's a big boy golf course, which it obviously is. And the scoring was very good yesterday, but I think that's what the PGA Championship tries to do, is identify the best player, but in a fair way. It's going to be tough, but it's going to be fair. And obviously the scoring yesterday produced that result with Jason Day and Brendan Todd Day leading at 5 under, and then a whole slew of players at 4 under. So I think we accomplished our goals of day one, and earlier in the week we accomplished probably the primary goal of this week that we were very concerned about, was that we have 156 players in the field with their caddies, and we partnered very closely with the PGA Tour, and the PGA Tour relationship hasn't been better since March than it ever could have been. And partnering with them, using their testing protocols, they basically started from scratch and built the manual on how you're going to conduct a golf tournament under COVID-19 situation, and everybody tested negative. So that's a huge positive that we're COVID free on property here. Everybody is safe. The players, just as we do throughout golf, is there's players last week that had tested and they withdrew, and as you treat the rules of golf, you're going to call it out on yourself. And but here we are. We're safe. We're playing golf. The second round's going. We will present the Wanamaker Trophy on Sunday evening to another very deserving major champion, and we look forward to it. And regardless that we're very few people here on property, we've conducted a PGA of America Major Championship this week, and we look forward to the future.
Well, thanks, David. And I know, Tom, you have a question, so please.
Yeah, David, typically, and you just mentioned a couple things, but typically in regards to on-course rules administration, you have a full group there with an assignment on each hole, plus rovers. How are you administering the rules of golf this week at Harding?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tom. And you're a former Rules Committee member. We traditionally would have about 40 rules officials, one per hole, and then also roving officials around in golf carts. And we've reduced that this week to actually it's 11. We have 10 roving rules officials. We have also a rules official in the broadcast booth. I think you saw Brad Gregory yesterday was giving the ruling when Bryson DeChambeau snapped the driver head when he leaned over to pick up his tee. He obviously did some damage to it while he was hitting the shot in some form, and he just leaned on the club a little bit and snapped the head off, which is very interesting. But yeah, it's very different where we don't have one rules official on every hole, but it is very similar to how we conduct our KitchenAid Senior PGA Championship and our KPMG Women's PGA Championship, that we have less rules officials and they are roving around. There's, just looking at the assignments, there's 7 zones. There's 3 on the front, 3 on the back, and then there's a front back rover. And then this week our rules chairman is Chip Essig, and he is overseeing the entire rules committee. And we have some, Tom, good friend for the rules committee for a number of years. Larry Startzel is working the first tee as always. What we won't have is walking officials with the last few groups, obviously with so few rules officials, but they'll all be in the carts roving around, making sure that all the rulings are well done, and pace of play is also ensured that they're moving around. It's quite interesting. I didn't see the final pace of play yesterday, but I think our at least the initial plan was, they're in threesomes, and it's about 4 hours 45, which is somewhat for us weekend warrior golfers is a little rather slow. I think we would have left the golf course if we took that long to play. But yeah, obviously they're grinding to compete in a major championship, and they just need to speed up in my mind.
David, one of the great things about a major championship is usually bringing in rules committee people from around the world. Have you been able to do that this year? Or are you using just PGA rules committee members, or is the tour involved? What is the mix of officials out there?
Yeah, Tom, it's a mix. We've, as I said, Chip Essig being the rules chair. There are a number of PGA. I'm just looking at the list here. I think we have 2 PGA Tour rules officials, and the main reason behind that was we had rules officials coming from all over the country, and there were some officials coming from the New York area that would have a mandatory 14-day quarantine upon return home from California. So they opted out of coming. So we were adding some new members of the rules committee later. But yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 of the 11 are PGA of America members and members of the PGA Rules Committee. So which is great.
Thank you.
Actually, 9 of the 11. Yeah, only 2 PGA Tour officials are with us. And typically, we have at a typical PGA Championship, like at Bethpage Black last year, we would have had members from the PGA Tour, but we would also invite our international partners and our allied associates. We'd have USGA rules officials, RNA from the Japanese PGA, and various other PGAs from around the world. We would typically have those as our guests to be officiating as well. But obviously, with travel restrictions this year, unfortunate that they weren't able to attend.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, David, for that rundown. And we're kind of proud to have our own Ted Antonopoulos on the officiating crew this week. It was good to catch up with Ted, and I know that he's out there. Great to have him there, and I know that he's headed to the Masters in November as well. So wonderful representation.
Yeah, Ted was working the scoring tent yesterday. He was doing the groups coming off of the 9th hole. So he'll be in there again today, and then roving around for the weekend.
So David, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. I know you've got your hands full, and if we get any questions or such, we'll forward them to you for responding. So thank you for being with us this morning.
Well, thank you, Len and Tom. No problem, anytime. And we just hope that everybody tunes in to ESPN and CBS and enjoys the PGA Championship here at Harding Park. So thank you for the time. Thank you for including me. And again, tune in to watch us crown a champion on Sunday evening.
Great. Thank you, David.
Thanks.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
So just some more information before we toss it to Craig Kessler, that round 2 will be playing at 7,188 yards today at Harding Park. And looks like we have 2 two pretty good, very drivable 4 pars, number 7. On this number 7, the official yardage is 321, but a straight line is 317 yards, and number 16 at 285. That's not even that's almost a chip shot these days. So 71.88 is the official yardage for today, and two very drivable 4s, number 7 and number 16. So with that, I'd like to toss it to the gentlemen, a couple of gentlemen that have really carried us through since we've been doing this now for almost 120 days, and that is Craig Kessler and Kevin Fitzgerald. And so at the moment, I'd like to introduce Craig Kessler, Director of Governmental Affairs for the Southern California Golf Association. Craig, thanks again for being with us all of the time, and more than just this as well, on our California Alliance calls and some others. And we look forward to today's update.
Thank you, Len. Good morning. Thank you, Tom, and good morning to you, and good morning to the PGA professionals online from both Northern and Southern California. I'm going to bet that most, if not all of you, have heard that old bromide about hard cases making bad law. It's a line I repeated a lot a few years ago during the mega drought, and to which I would always add a corollary: hard cases make bad law, and crises make for bad public policy. And at that time, I would launch into a lengthy explanation as to why we shouldn't be particularly put off by the fact that there was almost no rational relationship between the rules that were governing the use of water by jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions were required to reduce their domestic consumption by as much as 36% on past practices. Some none, some 4%, some 8%. And I remember at the time that in the Coachella Valley, where the supply is virtually unlimited, they were a 36% district based upon the rules that the state had put in place. And when I visited Santa Barbara County, and we put together a group of golf courses to meet with some of the water districts, and particularly the Goleta Water Valley District. And I looked up one before I got there because I do my studying in advance, and it was an 8% district. And I thought, well, this is no problem. These golf courses can cut 8% off a previous use in a snap. And then I was informed by the conservation manager, they didn't care about that they were dependent upon Lake Cachuma as their source. And it was down to 9% of capacity. And if they didn't get 40 to 50% cutbacks immediately, they were going to run out of water. And that was not uncommon, no rational relationship. And I used to try to explain to golf audiences that the point in all of this was not sound public policy, not even sound science, not even sound evidentiary bases for the decisions, but just in a panic to get control of things, to get control of something. In the case of a drought, at least we've been through those before. You'd hope we'd been through them before. But oftentimes the policymakers in place were new to the game. And I tell that little story at the beginning here to sort of remind everyone that that was our take at the very, very beginning of the pandemic. Yes, Sacramento County and San Luis Obispo County kept playing golf. And most of Southern California counties played golf for a little bit before the panic set in and before the policymakers lost sight of rational bases for decisions. They simply they felt they had a need in a panic to get control of everything. And if you remember, all of us, Len, Tom, Craig, and those of us in the golf industry, and I think it disturbed many of you based on the emails I got, were counseling patients. We stated that, yes, we knew that recreational forms of golf were perfectly safe to play under the conditions and under all the state and local county orders. And they knew it too, and we had sustained the case. And we counseled patients that if we just waited it out until the panic subsided, that case would come back to the front of the docket and we'd be playing recreational golf again. And that by and large played out pretty much, and I think everyone was satisfied. We're in a similar position now. There are certain rules in certain places regarding organized competitive play and some other things that make no sense whatsoever, for which we have made the arguments, we've sustained the arguments, and those making the rules know that we've sustained the arguments. But they have other issues and problems, optics, as cases go up, as they're confronted. For those of you in the southern part of the state know that there are large homes in the Hollywood Hills and in the Santa Monica Mountains that that are playing host to rather large parties, which obviously points have spread. So in an effort to, convey the seriousness of the moment, to try to get down the curve, to try to get the cases, it's very difficult to do anything which amounts to a deviation or could be construed as a relaxation. So again, I'm counseling maximal patience, and I'm probably counseling myself as well, to truth be known, because it's very difficult. I'm not going to go into the details, but Tom Addis and I got an email early last evening. I'm not going to name the government, and I don't know how I think Tom, what I concluded from it was that it was actually hard to have that many misstatements of fact in so few words in such a short email. But again, we'll follow up on that.
Uneducated, Craig.
Uneducated, yes, but nonetheless, again, pointing out that as frustrating as it can be to have your fate held in the hands, as Tom called them, uneducated, they didn't make those misstatements because they're malicious or meant us any harm or anti-golf. They made those misstatements. They may have relied upon bad advice from the state. It appears, I'm not sure who in the state advised them, but whatever, what it really amounted to was, as they're working on trying to get kids back in school, as they're working on a number of things of, let's be honest, of infinitely more importance than golf. I know everyone on this call thinks, we all believe that the universe centers on golf, or golf runs the universe. But the truth of the matter is, pay close attention to the headlines. There's a substantial percentage of the population, as Congress diddles back in Washington, D.C., that may not have the money to pay the rent next month, and which means the landlords can't pay the bank notes, which means the banks have to, issue new earnings reports and so forth, and one cascading problem after the next. And they may look at the golf industry and say, from what we can tell, your play is up 20 to 25% over last year, despite some of the encumbrances that we placed on you. So maybe you can't do everything that you want to do with the game the way you would, and maybe the facts militate in favor of doing those things. So again, that's the situation we're in. That doesn't mean that Len and Tom and Craig and the others on this call and the others who labor in the industry won't continue to press these cases, although we don't want to press them over the line where we kind of upset those policymakers, just enough to remind them that we've won those arguments, and that time will come for them when they feel the optics are such that they can execute policies that sustain those arguments. Now, I haven't mentioned any specifics here, except to say that that's because I would have to almost go county by county by county, but most of them deal with organized competitive events. Well, one of the great ironies is that I think there is an organized competitive event going on in San Francisco at a San Francisco municipal golf course this week that 164 nations are tuning in on. So, and I do know that my own Southern California Golf Association played a big role in working with the city of San Diego last week at Torrey Pines to put on a wonderful state amateur. And I was very pleased that we got some nice comments back from the city stating that it was about as clean, as pristine, and safe as anything could imagine. And that's pretty much a pattern I've seen. I was at a private equity club yesterday. I'm not going to name the club. I probably should, because I was impressed with everything I saw, literally everything. But I was particularly impressed with the way in which they weren't just meeting all of the mandates. And this is a golf course in the city of Los Angeles, a golf club, but they were exceeding them. My temperature had to be taken. It was almost a showcase. And keeping in mind, I know everyone gets frustrated that as we have a lot of persons out there who are flouting the rules and holding big parties in the Hollywood Hills and are becoming objects of transmission of the disease. It's like all laws and regulation. it really isn't the law abiding. And I was at an example yesterday that I considered high class. You don't have to worry about them. They do it. So oftentimes those who pay attention to the rules and take the rule of law seriously, and I think golf is exemplary in that fashion. I know we disagree with some of these regulations and rules, but I think at the end of the day, we all recognize that we will honor those things with which we disagree. And as frustrating as that can be at times, let me suggest it will be our continuing ticket to not only win those arguments that we've already sustained when the time presents itself, but almost no matter what happens with the pandemic, and we're in the second crest of the first wave, and then there's a second wave, and I don't know how many crests will be in that. Well, there is some good news on the hospitalizations and some of the other numbers right now in the state of California, and that's heartening. But we know there's going to be ebbs and flows, and there's going to be ups and downs, and we want to make sure that we continue to put on a show for the world, demonstrate a little bit of understanding of the moment, and so that we will continue to be looked upon benignly as exemplars of following those rules, and like I was yesterday at a club, exceeding all those health standards by quite a bit. We'll continue to be able to do what we do. The PGA of America can run that championship at a San Francisco municipal golf course. The Northern and Southern California Golf Associations can run a state amateur again at Torrey Pines, also a municipal golf course with incredible exposure and visibility. So we'll tuck it in. We'll continue to make those cases and sustain those cases and carry forth. And just let me close out those rather generic remarks with repeating. Hard cases do indeed make bad law. There's a lot. The reason we keep repeating that is because there's a lot of truth in it. And my own corollary about crises making for bad public policy, there's no doubt much of the public policy is bad. But keep in mind that we didn't get the drought policy all that well. We have lots of droughts in California. We haven't had a pandemic in California of a serious nature like this in over 100 years, little over 100 years, which means that everyone trying to cope with it at all levels have zero experience. Their parents and grandparents probably have no experience. Maybe their great-grandparents had experience. So it's like a lot of things. The good news about the mega drought, for the golf industry anyway, and I think for water districts all across the state, is that we did learn a lot of lessons moving forward, because we know we'll have future droughts. I'm going to assume we're going to learn a lot of lessons coming out of this pandemic. With any luck, I don't think not I hope, so that we can face a future pandemic better than this one. But again, all public health crises, all crises have something in common in the sense that they present us with a set of dynamics that quite honestly we're unprepared for. I mean, you feel for those, and there may be some on this call. I mean, the unemployment benefits were very generous, but I don't know how many hundreds of thousands, if not more than 1 million Californians have yet to receive that first check. And you begin to wonder, well, of course, when unemployment was 3%, EDD wasn't much strain, and suddenly it spikes up at God knows what number it is in real terms, and it strains everything and expands everything. So with that rather generic thing, I'd be happy to answer specific questions about where we stand, but I've avoided some of that today because much of it is sort of disappointing, and it falls into that realm of things which are, your answer is going to be, but that makes no sense. And the clear answer is, you're correct. It makes no sense. And a lot of what we're going through now makes no sense. But if you take a couple of steps back and recognize at least golf is luckier than most, and let's keep parlaying that luck into continued playing of a recreational game. And again, also beginning to think a little bit that the pandemic won't be with us forever. And now we have this opportunity, and I'm told to speak to a lot of municipal systems, and they're saying that not only are they packed from dawn till dusk, but they're seeing it, particularly some of their smaller courses or developmental facilities and executive courses, those that really struggled before the pandemic and have been, been on the brink for a long, long time. They've discovered a lot of new people coming to golf, in part, or coming back to it, maybe in part because it's one of the things that you can do that's safe and sensible and sane and healthy and outdoors and gets you away from some of the claustrophobia of the pandemic. And I think we need to begin pivoting and thinking about keeping them longer term in our game. So with that, and with, I apologize, less substance and a little bit more perspective and philosophy today, I'll yield the floor, and maybe there are a few specific questions that have come up, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Craig. And it is unfortunate when we have understandings of that magnitude at that level, because to some extent they're almost uncompatible, as you say. But yet we're having some great success in the industry in spite of that. We do have a question. Caitlin, I believe something has come through for Craig.
Yeah, one just came through. It says, any clarification on face covering for golf? I see the tennis order clarified for tennis and pickleball.
Yeah, the orders change in counties, and I just looked at the question board, so I know where it came from. So specifically, the SCPGA and the SCGA have formally, in writing, asked for a clarification. This is in Los Angeles County. Rewrote the order a couple of weeks ago on face coverings, and the way it was written, the verb remind is used at the opening. It's incumbent upon golf facilities to remind everyone, and then it goes into what you're supposed to be reminded of. Now, that order in many other places is not shy about speaking in terms of shall, must, and required. And as we pointed out in our written question, remind means remind, and there is a state order that requires it when you're in proximity of persons, and of course clearly when you're around a clubhouse, on a driving range, in a practice area, or even questionably perhaps even the first tee, clearly there's a state order that requires the face covering. But most are interpreting that. In fact, I would say anyone who understands the English language would interpret that as not requiring it once you're in the open air of a golf course, in the expanse, nowhere near anybody. However, because we are aware that a particular couple of very, very large municipal systems within LA County are interpreting that as a must, because they are so frightened and so exposed at doing anything that might jeopardize their continued ability to practice recreational golf, we asked for a clarification, if nothing else, so that, and we don't question, we just want them to tell us what they meant by it, so that we can inform this club, this questioner, and everybody else as to what it means. And we can avoid the kinds of fights and the kinds of problems that arise when those making the rules are not clear, don't use clear language to convey it. Because what ends up being a problem is the group goes out and plays golf course A on Tuesday, and it's pretty loose. It says, yeah, once you get out in the golf course, you can take that mask off. And then they show up 3 days later and they're admonished for not wearing it out in the middle of a fairway by someone driving by, and an argument ensues. And these kinds of questions come up. And again, I would say this is one of those things where I'm counseling patience and a little bit of forgiveness of public policy makers who are dealing with something they've never dealt with, and it's life and death issues, and it's whether kids can go back to school and whether businesses can reopen. Let's cut them a little bit of a break. But I get a little impatient on this one. There's an obligation for them to write things in plain English. And when asked by two big golf organizations that made clear that we have 460 golf facilities in our orbit, and we'd like nothing better than to send them something which tells them exactly what they need to do, and then everybody's on the same page, no problems. Whatever that page may be, we don't even want to argue the point. Whatever that page may be, and then at this point not being able to get an answer. It's at that point that I'm not quite as prepared to cut a slack. So I wish I could answer that question. I just want to make sure the questioner understands that we have pressed that question and pressed it again. And we will continue to press that question because we are entitled to an answer, and so are you.
Hey, Craig, thank you. I'm going to shift gears for just a moment. We've talked about this, but want to make sure everybody understands. And this has got to do with AB 5, which has now become AB 1850. and that's the independent contractor rules. There have been some inroads. There's more work to be done, but Craig, at this point, probably the most critical factor is that the session ends on the 31st. The session ends in 24 days from now. And as you've mentioned, as Tony mentioned, just a clarification that probably it's done for 2020. Would that seem correct?
Yes, we will give it our best shot, but it's done for 2020. Not only was the session truncated when they came back, but then they went away again. And then the Senate and the Assembly kind of went away at different times, so they couldn't get together. They will have to hold a special session after August 31st, but special sessions are not general sessions. So it'll be related entirely probably to COVID-19, and that brings budget issues into play as well. Keep in mind that before March 15th, pick whatever date, state of California was looking at a $20 billion rainy day fund in reserve, and a budget surplus that through 3/4 of the fiscal year had already accumulated a little over $3 billion extra to either divvy up or put into the rainy day fund, or a combination of the two. And by the time they came back 60, 80 days later and then left again, we'd pretty much plowed through everything and are looking at roughly over the next couple of years, depending on whose analysis you read, as high as a $54 billion deficit. And then with all of the legislation is focused on various forms of relief, whether it is, eviction moratoria or moratoria on mortgage payments, and it's just totally a mess. Now, if you've seen that there were some amendments to AB 5 that went through, and they looked like they went through belatedly when the legislature came back into session, keep in mind all of that was packaged and ready to go back in January, long before the pandemic, and all they did was take it and execute it. And there's really been no other movement on it since. So while I've always stated that the way I've characterized it in simple English is that the business to business for professional services exception that it was put into AB 5 and that we worked on provided a healthy measure of relief. And I would go so far as to say, if a facility is inclined to want independent contracting teaching, there's a way to craft those agreements to do it. We had hoped this year to make it easier to craft those agreements and make it more seamless. And we thought that was our number one item on our agenda a few months ago. And we were very optimistic about getting it done. But given all the circumstances, I think what Len is having me do is give a long explanation as to why we'll be waiting till 2021 to perfect that exception.
Thank you, Craig, and I appreciate you addressing that because it is so important, because it is affecting so many throughout our sections. Okay, at this point, I think that's pretty much covered everything. So I'd like to toss it to Southern California President Tony Lotandre for some closing remarks. Tony?
Sorry about that. I was on mute, and just want to say thanks for all the information. And Craig, keeping us up to date. We certainly appreciate that. And David, for spending some time with us. I don't know if you're still on the line. I'm sure you're busy at the PGA Championship, but thank you for running our championship, and very excited to see who we hand the Wanamaker Trophy to on Sunday. It'll be very exciting. So thanks everybody for the time, and have a great rest of your week and weekend.
Thank you, Tony. And President Moriarty is now no longer on the call. And so at this time, I'd like to go to Executive Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Southern California PGA, Tom Addis. Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Len, and thanks, everybody. And thanks to David and, as usual, Craig. Would like to just kind of follow up. And I say this all the time, and I don't mean to be preaching, but, we're setting such a good example out there. I guess I do mean to be preaching. We're setting such a good example out there with as an outdoor activity, and just be very, very cautious still, and especially as you work. Many of you do a great job on your socials, whether it be Facebook or Instagram, whatever it might be. But I just recommend that you be very, very careful in what you do post, that you're distancing properly. You're using face coverings. You're not arm in arm and arms around each other and touching. that you're very cautious about that, because more and more authorities, if you will, are monitoring what we're doing, and you're going to see more and more of that. So just be careful and make sure and ensure that every post that you do is very cautious and following the guidelines and the protocols. That's all. It's just it's so important to keep golf where we are as that outdoor and favorite outdoor activity, because it's so busy. It's obviously a great thing and an easy way to be responsible for those protocols. So thank you for doing that and continuing to do that. Would like a shout out to Jeff Hart, Southern California PGA member, of course. He's our section champion and our senior section champion. And speaking of senior, Jeff is 60 years old. He played the tour. He played the Champions Tour, PGA Tour Champions. This is his first PGA Championship. He's the oldest, I believe, first timer in the PGA. And so congratulations for being there, Jeff. Jeff had a 77 in the first round. He was 1 under for a while there and on the leaderboard. And hopefully he's playing a little bit pretty soon, actually. And we wish Jeff the best and the other 19 PGA professionals in the field. So look forward to next week. Next week, we're hoping to have Jeff and then Dr. Landsberger for an update on COVID protocols, procedures, what's happening out there. And look forward to next week. Len, thanks again. Caitlin, Bryce, for your hard work. Craig and David, again, thanks so much.
Thank you, Tom. And Jeff was front and center yesterday. He had the 7 a.m. starting time, and he's at 12:25 today. So please be sure to follow Jeff this afternoon and wish him the best as we go through. And as Tom mentioned, certainly our other 19 club professionals and the entire field. Even here at Harding Park, just here's what's happening as we arrive. Our temperature is taken at the gate. We then are given a band to put on our wrists that we have had our temperature taken and have answered questions about recent activity. Everyone is wearing face coverings, pretty much except the players and the caddies, given their communications and such. But I can tell you that these days are split tees. As the players are finishing on both the 18 green and 9 green. They're virtual elbow bumping, they're virtual fist pumping, and just waving to each other pretty much. So I offer that in the sense of the extent that the protocols are being observed. And, outside of the gate, we're off camera, but yet we're still doing it. Inside, their cameras are on, and I think we can see that the golf industry is taking this very, very seriously, and it's turning out to be successful for all of us. So with that, as Tom said, please continue, everyone, to be safe. Thank you so much for participating. Once again, the weekend is here. Please enjoy the championship and the first major of the year. And as David mentions, of the past 6 majors, 3 of them have been the PGA, something to be very proud of. A little scary when he did mention the Ryder Cup being moved to 2033. And that number's out there. So, but we'll do the best we can. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Enjoy the weekend. Good luck. Continue to be safe. Have some fun, and we'll speak with you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Len, Tony, everybody, Dee Dee.
Thanks, everybody.